So I finally got around to watching the live-action Avatar Season 2, and although I wanted it to be at least somewhat decent, it is kinda bad. But if you enjoy Avatar content, then be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, trying to hit 25k by the end of the year. Now, when I first jumped into it, I wasn't expecting it to be some flawless masterpiece, but I mean, on one hand, it's definitely an improvement over the first season. The visuals are better, the bending feels like actual bending and not just weird movement, and there are moments where it genuinely captures the feeling of the original animated series. I will say though, although it's not great, it's still a bit better than Season 1. At the same time though, the season still suffers from a lot of the same problems that held the first season back. What I mean is that the writing is a bit inconsistent, several character arcs feel a bit misunderstood, and the adaptation continues making strange changes that don't really improve the story or make sense. And while there are some highlights throughout the season, it never really escapes the feeling that it just doesn't trust the original series enough. One of the biggest issues is the story itself and the way the show chooses to adapt the original material. What makes these changes feel especially kinda weird is that this isn't really a situation where a book is being adapted into a movie with limited runtime, for example. It's a TV show being adapted into another TV show. Like, I know one is animated and one is live action, but you have the stuff to work with. And the original series proves that this works in an episodic format, like the runtime is pretty similar since each episode in the original animated series is about 20-22 minutes. With the live action, the episodes range from about 50 minutes to an hour, and give or take some time, it's almost about the same amount of time for each season. But what's weird is that the live action feels the need to remove, rearrange, or completely rewrite major events. Some scenes are recreated almost shot for shot, while others are radically different for no real reason. The biggest example is the removal of large portions of the desert storyline, and how they combine it with Ba Sing Se. The desert was one of the most important parts of Book 2 because it pushed every member of Team Avatar to their limits. And since they cut it out, they just added the different parts of that storyline into the Ba Sing Se part, like the library is in Ba Sing Se, Sokka meets Professor Zay in Ba Sing Se, Appa is taken in Ba Sing Se, and even Sokka taking cactus juice in Ba Sing Se, which, why did you feel the need to include that? By cutting out or just heavily altering sections like this, the live-action version loses a lot of the emotional weight that made the original story so memorable. The season also struggles heavily with writing and dialogue. There are a lot of moments where characters simply explain exactly what's happening instead of allowing the audience to understand it naturally. This is more so a recurring Netflix problem where writers seem afraid that viewers won't understand the story unless everything is spelled out for them. One of the most obvious examples comes when Toph invents metal bending. In the original series, the audience understands what's happening through the visuals, the build-up, and Toph's realization. But in the live action, after she breaks out of the metal cage, she just kinda proclaims that she's the greatest earthbender in the world and that she invented metal bending. It just feels that with the live action, it feels like characters constantly narrate events that should be obvious, and instead of trusting the audience, the show often stops momentum just so someone can explain the plot or a character's emotions. This happens throughout the season and makes many scenes feel less natural than they should. Rather than creating emotional moments, the dialogue often ends up sounding like exposition. Moving to the actual characters and performances, they're probably the most mixed aspect of the season. Some actors genuinely do a good job with the material they're given. The Fire Nation cast continues to be one of the strongest parts of this adaptation. Zuko and Iroh still have a strong chemistry, and the actors do a great job representing this. Azula also is a step up from season 1, and it feels like she's more of a villain in this season also, but she's still held back by the writing. But honest to God, I will say the most annoying part about this season is Aang himself. I swear, every episode he's whining or bitching about something inconvenient that's happening. While Aang in the old series certainly struggled with the responsibility and the balance that came with being the Avatar and just the burden that all it had with it, the live-action version often leans too heavily into his frustration and self-pity. But I will say though, one thing I did like that they did is something with Sokka, as they expanded upon his sadness with what happened with Yue in the north. Since he sees himself as a warrior, he expects that he's supposed to not be sad over things like this, and that he should be over her death or her turning into the moon, but he's not deep down. And when Team Avatar reconnects with Suki and the rest of the Kyoshi warriors and she tries to get closer to Sokka, he can only really push her away. And you see him over the course of season 2 come to terms with what happened to Yue as he finally talks about it, and he finally wants to move forward with his relationship with Suki, but at the end of the season it's kinda too late. Katara's character arc was also a little weird, like they definitely incorporated her teaching Aang and at the end of the season her confrontation with Zuko in the Crystal Catacombs, but they also had her being the painted lady and kind of a vigilante, with her wanting to help people, and again, it's one of those storylines they decided to change for no real reason, besides the fact that they just want to change the story for their own purpose. But I will say though, I do like her interactions when she's the painted lady with Zuko when he's the blue spirit. The standout for Team Avatar though was definitely Toph. And again, just like with the Fire Nation, the writing does hold her back. The actress who plays her does a really good job of trying to portray her as a tough person on the outside, especially when she trains Aang, but on the inside, she's still a bit tragic. She's still trying to come to terms with the fact that her parents don't really see her as a person, more so just what they want their version of her to be, as they change Toph's storyline so that her mom is the one who drugs her and puts her in the cage. And then mix that in with the fact that she finally accepts Team Avatar as her true family, with her still being, Toph at the same time, being straight to the point and no bullshit pretty much. But even with all that, again, just harping on the fact that it's the writing that holds them all back. And getting into visuals, they're definitely an improvement over season 1. The bending feels more powerful and dynamic than before. Earthbending actually looks heavy, firebending has more intensity, and waterbending looks like it could actually do some damage. It's just that this season has scenes that have a scale that the first season lacked, and for the most part, the world feels more alive and visually interesting. That said, there are still moments where the effects can look awkward or overly artificial. Some action scenes have notably CGI-heavy appearances that can kind of pull viewers out of the experience. But the clear standout is the Serpent's Pass episode, or episode 1. Nearly everything about that episode looks better than the rest of the season. The environment, especially when Aang and Katara kind of ice board surfing on the water, the creature effects, especially the water dragon itself, the action scenes and overall cinematography all feel noticeably higher quality. I don't know, it just kind of seems to me that they spent most of the budget on the first episode, just mostly trying to get everything into the Serpent Pass scene. Overall though, Avatar Live Action Season 2 is still better than Season 1, but it isn't really saying much. The visuals are improved, several performances are strong, and there are moments where the show captures the spirit of the original series, but it's just the adaptation continues to make unnecessary story changes. The dialogue often treats the audience like they need everything explained to them, and several character arcs lose what made them compelling in the first place. It's not completely terrible, it's just kinda bad, and nowhere near the level of the animated masterpiece it's based on. More than anything, Season 2 feels like a show that hasn't really figured out what to adapt faithfully and when to make changes, making it feel like it's stuck somewhere between trying to be its own thing or just the recreation of something that already did it better. But let me know down below what you think. But if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see more from me, go check out my other channels and go follow me on TikTok, which will all be linked down below. But with all that out of the way, I will catch you in the next one. Peace.